Hi, I'm Irene von der Sande. I'm the executive director and founder of Kid Power, Teen Power, Full Power International. I am thrilled to be able to provide this webinar on psychological safety skills as part of our collaboration with Workplace Options.
Hello, my name is Emily Fournier. I'm a marketing and communications manager at Workplace Options.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Leger, and I'm the Kid Power International Programs Director for Kid Power, Teen Power, Full Power International.
Hi, my name is Sonora Mongeiro-Scott, and I'm a clinical team lead with Workplace Options.
Thank you for being here today. We are hoping that everybody watching this webinar will join us in practicing some of the psychological safety skills we will be introducing and teaching. Workplace Options has made a tremendous commitment to psychological safety, employee well-being in the workplace, and actually throughout their entire personal lives as well. This is so congruent with our values of wanting each person to feel that they can be their genuine self in their workplace, on their jobs, and get the support they need. Our webinar today is on workplace psychological safety skills. And I want to acknowledge that Workplace Options has a tremendous commitment to the well-being of employees, both on the workplace and throughout their personal lives. Providing resources, creating systems, creating policies, and helping employers to create workplaces where every person feels welcome and respected. Psychological safety is an essential part of that. So today we will be focusing on one small but important aspect, because knowing what should be done, knowing what the policies are, and knowing how to do it is not the same as actually practicing what to say and do when somebody causes problems that affect psychological safety. The Workplace Options report, Managing Psychosocial Risks in the Workplace, defines 4 pillars of psychological safety. Each person needs to feel included, and that means that we want to work together to create a culture of safety, respect, and kindness for everybody. That people feel safe to learn, that instead of being afraid of making mistakes or asking questions, that they can be in an environment where mistakes are seen as part of learning. And that if they don't know something, it's okay to show that they don't know it rather than trying to cover that up. People need to feel safe to contribute their own thoughts and ideas, because that helps for innovation, it helps for preventing problems, and it also helps people have ownership of what they're doing. So welcoming new ideas, even if it can be less convenient or upsetting in the moment, to think about something different, is important. And finally, being able to challenge the status quo, to be able to disagree with the person in charge and to speak up about something that maybe you've always been doing, but now it's time to consider something different. So those are the factors that help make a healthy workplace where people feel like they belong and where they have motivation to do things, where they're going to stick around, and where really amazing work gets done.
Let's dive in a little bit into the behaviors that can damage psychological safety in the workplace. Sonora or Emily, would you mind answering what you think you've experienced or you've heard about that are behaviors that damage psychological safety in the workplace?
Bullying is definitely something that damages psychological safety.
I would like the first few things that come to mind for me are a workplace that's not flexible, within certain boundaries, but lack of flexibility and unclear communication of what's expected of the employees. I feel like that can cause a lack of safety, psychological safety.
Awesome, thank you. So here are some of the behaviors that we heard from many different kinds of workplaces that are damaging to psychological safety. People making negative or inaccurate assumptions about who you are as a person, what you believe in, your culture, your identity, all of everything that makes us us. Comments that are put downs, or remarks that are put downs towards others or ourselves. Behavior, you mentioned that harassment and bullying, whether it's subtle or explicit, both are just as damaging. Intrusive questions also sometimes can fall into that category as well. Someone talking over you or down at you or to you. Discrimination and physical threats as well, which also falls under that very damaging label as well.
And what we know is that this causes problems for the individual, and it causes problems for their employer. When people are experiencing these behaviors, it gets in the way of them doing the best job they can and them enjoying what they're doing and working well with other people. These kinds of behaviors create a lot of feelings when you experience them, when you witness them. And it's great that you have policies in place that make this kind of behavior less likely to occur or provide paths for people and how to address this behavior. However, when you're an individual in the moment, it is normal to explode with feelings when you see hurtful behavior or hear hurtful talk. And so we work on managing emotional triggers and some of the tools we provide in order to protect our feelings. But to do that, we want to think about what triggers are. Triggers are thoughts, words, gestures, or other stimuli that cause us to explode with feelings. And when our minds and bodies are exploding with feelings, it's hard to think clearly. It's hard to make safe and wise choices for ourselves. Often triggers are positive, which can also cause problems. We all know people, and probably have had this happen ourselves, where we get like somebody so much or admire them so much. It might be a friend, it might be a partner, it might be a colleague, it might be a leader at work or out in the community. But whatever it is, when we set aside our thinking and ignore problem behavior because we feel so good about somebody or want to be part of something so much, then that is unsafe. Negative triggers it's often caused by emotional attacks, is what we call them, where people convey messages that you're worthless or helpless, or they try to use emotional coercion to get you to lower your boundaries and do something for them that you wouldn't otherwise do. These are things that we can manage. So I have a question for you. What does it feel like? What do you feel like when you're triggered? What does it feel like inside? Where do you feel it in your body? What does it look like?
I can say, top of my mind, overwhelming, and in a word, powerless if you're very triggered by something.
Yeah, I think especially in the workplace, you can, like, I think of that fight, flight, freeze response situation. And in the workplace, I feel like there's a lot of freeze because you have to be careful how you kind of navigate certain things. So that's what comes to my mind.
Yes. Now we've got a slide that shows common reactions to negative emotional triggers, and we're going to kind of act them out. We talk about exploding. Well, you can explode inward and be hurt. Everybody go kind of close down and go, ouch, like this. Go ahead. Ready? Go.
Ouch.
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 Okay. You can get mad and explode outward. Everybody lean towards the screen because this is very effective if you do it this way. Point and yell, hey!
Hey.
Hey,
Okay. Everybody shut down. Just go like that. Freeze. This is a common one that can really be triggering, especially if you have it with a teenager. Everybody disconnect. Go, fine, whatever. Go ahead.
Fine.
fine,
Whatever.
whatever.
Good. And then my one is go on automatic pilot, like the Energizer Bunny. Everybody kind of go, close your eyes, go like you're running fast and go, I gotta fix it. I gotta fix it. Go
I
ahead.
gotta fix
I
it.
gotta fix it. I gotta fix it.
Great. So these are ways of recognizing common emotional reactions in yourself or in others. And there's others, like people constantly making jokes, which is a way of disconnecting, for example.
So one of the things that we can do to take charge of our personal safety is have some tools in our toolbox or some skills to manage our feelings and our triggers when they come up. Because we know that we have the tendency of remembering what we practice and doing that in real life, and it helps our body memory to do things. I'm going to invite you all to do these skills with us. Even if you do them in your imagination in real life, doing them with your body actually helps you learn and integrate them together. Another also positive impact of rehearsing is it really helps us support our sense of confidence, but it also reduces anxiety and increases our sense of competence as well. So it really is beneficial to practice these ahead of time, helps with our mental preparedness so that if you do need them in the moment, you have a sense of how it feels and how to do the skills. Kind of like driving in the parking lot instead of learning to drive on the highway. So let's all of us do this first skill, which is calm down power. Take the heels of your hand and push them together. I'm raising my hand up high on the screen so everybody can see, but you can rest your arms wherever it's comfortable for your body. And there's parts of something here in our bodies that actually helps us calm down. So push on your hands. And while you do that, let go for a moment, take a breath, let it out, and then push on your hands when you let your breath out. Good. You can even wiggle your toes at the bottom of your shoes. Feel how your body's placed, how you're sitting on the chair if you're leaning on something, or how you're standing if you're standing up. And all of these things put together helps us use our calm down power. Good. Now let's do it one more time with our breath. Take it out, a breath, and let it out. And push with your hands. So that's one skill. You don't have to do this with your body if it's not appropriate. You can imagine you're doing it in your mind, or just use the table or the chair or whatever you have access to push your hands on. Another skill that we can use is our emotional safety screen. So everybody put your fingers, I like doing number 4s. Some people like doing 3s. Some like putting just their hands up. You pick, but you want to crisscross your fingers so that it kind of does like a screen on a window. So I'm scooting mine to the side. You can put it in front of you wherever you like, but I want you to see what I'm saying as well. And basically you're using this like an emotional safety screen. Same way that a screen on a window would cut out bugs, but still lets in air and light. You can tighten that screen or widen it depending on the situation of what's going on. But what you're doing is you're filtering for information or useful or kind things and blocking or stopping things that are hurtful. So for example, if somebody said, you're doing such a bad job on this, you forgot to put in your report on time. Go ahead, put up your screen. So what would be the useful piece of information that comes in what I said? Bringing the report on time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but could you block out there you're doing a bad job? Yes. So there's sometimes letting information that's useful and is helpful, and blocking what's hurtful out. The third one is using a little bit of a boundary power. Everybody put your hands up so we can see it on the screen a little bit. In real life, you might be doing it all the way down here, but because we're on screen, let's just show our hands. And all of you say, that's not true. Go ahead and say that.
That's
not true.
Awesome. Basically, that's when somebody says something that's untrue about you and puts it together with something true. And sometimes we don't know what to say. For example, it might be a coworker or even a boss saying, you're a really bad employee because you show up late. Is it true that you show up late? Yes, but is that true that you're a bad employee? No. Everybody say, that's not true. Go ahead and say that.
That's not true.
Not true.
Awesome.
We're not saying you're going to walk around going like this when your boss tells you you did a bad job. But I will say that making that gesture will either help you remember it or the concept, or often people will make a gesture like this, settle down in their lap. And the same thing with that's not true. Now, some cases you might just set a boundary and say, that's not true. But in other cases, you might just be able to think it rather than internalizing those hurtful messages. Well, one thing that people often say to me is, you're too bossy. And so I say, that's not true. I just like to get things done. You can think about things, and it'd be interesting to see later. Often people take these and then find them applying them later. These are very simple. We've got a whole 30 safety signals, these simple gestures and graphics that you're welcome to use. These are 5 strategies for taking charge of a conversation, because often things that undermine psychological safety happen with what people say or the messages they communicate with their body language. And so having something where you're, even if it's a coworker, a customer, or a supervisor, having strategies where you can take charge of the conversation and protect yourself emotionally or help support other people and their psychological safety can make a huge difference. So it's interrupt and change the subject, redirect the conversation, set a boundary. We're going to practice all of these in a minute. Advocate and educate for others, and then leave in a confident and respectful way. How we interrupt and what we say matters, and how well it works, and whether it's going to be experienced as disrespectful or it's going to be something that people can hear and listen to. You want to be very specific and clear without attacking people's intentions or character, and lead with a positive connection when you can. You know, your tone of voice matters. We do whole workshops just on that. What we're going to do, though, is take some specific problems and see how we might apply these skills. And then when we practice, we're going to give you each a chance to practice. You might want to take a different example. We'll show it, and then you can take a different example or use ours. You don't need to repeat exactly what we say. Make this your own words. So I decided to start with leaving because that's the simplest. And Marilyn, can you do that one? Show that.
Sure. Okay, so let's do this practice. Let's imagine that, Irene, you're asking a lot of very intrusive questions to me, and I'm going to use the interrupt and leave confidently and respectfully at the same time. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so are you married? Do you have children?
Sorry, I apologize. I forgot something. Gotta go. See you later. And then leave respectfully. That might be one answer. Do the same thing. I'll do a different version of that one.
Where'd you go on vacation? Where do you like to go?
I'm late. Bye.
Okay. Okay.
For example, interrupt very simply, positively. So everybody say, sorry, gotta go. Say that.
Sorry, gotta go.
Sorry, gotta go.
Okay.
Or say, I'm late. Say that. I'm late.
I'm
late.
So I'm curious, is there an example where a situation where you might use that leaving tactic or keep it to somebody else, Sonora?
Yeah, I think in situations where I'm being asked personal, like things I don't feel comfortable answering, it might not seem personal to somebody else, but we don't have to answer all the questions. Or if somebody is talking about a subject that is not appropriate necessarily for the workplace, I might not want to lecture them and just cut it short and leave.
I think in the workplace, probably gossiping is something that never really ends well if you participate in it. So if people try to gossip in you, you just leave and say you have something else to do.
Great. So we call that target denial. It's a self-defense term that means don't be there. And don't be there with your feelings, don't be there with your body, just go. So another tactic is to interrupt and change the subject. Suppose I'm talking about political views that you really find awful, Marilyn, and don't want to get into an argument about. I might be saying something like, I hope our party wins because that will save our country.
That's interesting. I'd like to hear about your vacation. I'm not dismissing what Irene said, but I am redirecting the conversation, changing the subject.
That's interesting, is one of those things you can always say, no matter how awful what somebody, you're not agreeing with them. You're acknowledging that it's interesting. You can vent about it, maybe not in gossiping in the workplace, but, vent about it with somebody that you feel safe venting it with. But to be able to just change the subject, if leaving is not your best choice, maybe just changing the subject is. You can also be complimentary and change the subject. So, Marilyn, could you just give an example? Yeah. Oh, I don't want more of those people around.
Excuse me, I heard you did a wonderful job on the project. What are you most proud of? Tell me about it.
Now, later, we might do some education with this person and try to help them change. But in the moment, people need other tools and they need to feel like they can take charge of the conversation. So, Emily, what might be a situation where you'd change the subject?
Besides talking about politics, I would say, again, I guess gossiping is something in the workplace.
Okay, so one of the best ways to change the subject. So suppose I say something negative about another coworker. Then what you're going to change the subject is you're going to say, "Do you want to know what she said about you?" And then when they say, "No, what?" you say, "She said you were great."
Hmm. There you go.
So what about you, Sonora? What would be something that you might change the subject for?
Probably like things around your morals or like religion, stuff like that. I think is unless we're talking about like, oh, this religious holiday that I celebrated with my family or something like that, I think it's okay to change the subject in
Okay.
those situations.
Yes. Absolutely. And it doesn't mean you won't address the underlying issues as you can, but it's helpful to have tools that you can do quickly in the moment to protect you and to take care of that conversation and protect others too. All right, another one is redirecting. So Marilyn?
Sure. So suppose that I keep ignoring or dismissing other people's ideas and I talk over them, or I'm saying stuff that, saying what I think over their idea, taking over the conversation, basically. You can use that situation to help redirect or refocus that conversation on our common ground. So let's say I did that to Irene. And I said, so I have
Oh,
a really good idea, and I think you need to hear
no,
about what I have to say. It's
really
so much better.
That's really interesting, and time is short. So let's focus on our meeting direction of discussion today about the new project. Or let's stay with our
Okay.
agenda.
All right. Another example could be to use, let's say, sounds like a conversation for later, let's say, and then refocus it. So let's say I had another disruptive behavior where I'm saying, oh no, that's not a good idea. And you want to stop that patterning that I'm doing because it's affecting the group meeting. So I'm doing that with Irene again. Oh no, let's not talk about that right now. That's not a good idea.
Let's focus on the new project and let's welcome everybody's ideas.
So there's different ways of interrupting, but the idea is the same, is to refocus in the moment of what's important or what's the common ground.
If you let a conversation gain momentum, it can knock you over, right? If you stop it quickly, it doesn't take airtime. It makes everybody else feel safer. And so that's why we put such a focus on different ways to interrupt and redirect. In the situation with somebody ignoring and dismissing and just over explaining, what kind of redirect or what might be something relevant for you, Sonora?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about somebody who's leading a meeting, for example, and they do hold that responsibility to keep things on track. And sometimes a situation I can think of is if someone is sharing a lot of personal information or like I don't want to use the term trauma dumping. I don't know how accurate that is, but like oversharing, think of that situation.
Absolutely. Yes. What about you, Emily?
I would say probably if in a meeting, if someone is kind of going back to the factors that damage psychological safety, if it's like making generalizations about people or using like offensive terms to talk about different topics and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. And I imagine both of you are in positions where you are leading meetings and do this. And we want to teach other people to do it. I'd even like bystanders, people in the meeting, in the group, to all have these tools so that they can help support keeping things within boundaries and emotionally safe. Another is, though, we brought it up, is to interrupt and set a boundary. So suppose, Marilyn, that I keep interrupting you when you're trying to talk. And so imagine that you've been talking and I say, well, I think we ought to, get going.
Excuse me, please let me finish.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So
And the energy and tone also, I need to say, are very important, because if you're saying, excuse me, please let me finish, doesn't come away across the same way as if you do it very positively and calmly at the same time.
I would like to go into some more challenging boundary setting situations because we use something we call a boundary bridge. We've noticed that skilled communicators do this intuitively. So instead of just jumping into the, I feel uncomfortable when you say that, we want to say an acknowledgement of the other person. I might like working here. I think you're a good person. I appreciate you. I know you're working hard. I know you mean no harm. That's the positive connection that we can start with. And then state what your concern is, and then set the boundary. So, for example, if somebody is making rude jokes or making, prejudice type remarks, you could say, I understand that you think this is funny. And we call it a bridge because if I say, I like you, but that, are you going to remember what I said, I like you, or are you only going to be thinking about what happened after the but? So that's why we say, and. I understand that you think this is funny, and this kind of joke about people's looks and identity are hurtful to many people and offensive to me. Please, can you joke about something else? So we're specific, we're not condemning their intentions, and we are being really clear about what we want. It might be somebody gossiping and complaining about somebody that didn't get their work done, right? Or kept making mistakes and needing your help. So I might be saying, I wish, she just never gets things done on time. It causes me so many problems. And Marilyn, you can interrupt me, okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm just so frustrated with her. I just don't know what to do.
Irene, excuse me. I know you're just expressing your opinion, and comments like that can be harmful to other people. Please don't share comments like that. That might hurt other people.
Okay, and you could also say, please talk about it if you're really try to talk to her directly, or him directly, or them directly, and please get help from your supervisor. The point is that gossip that you're talking about grows, calling it out and telling people, I'm not going to participate, and I would like you to redirect that person to doing something else. So if you were in a situation, whether it's put down remarks, prejudice remarks, and you wanted to, get somebody to change their behavior, what would be a situation where you might, it might be somebody putting somebody down, it might be making rude remarks, it might be somebody really attacking somebody's competence or credibility in the workplace, or it might be somebody that it's not even a joke, it's just an opinion, but the opinion that when they say it there in the workplace can be like putting a little bit of poison into a stew. Even with a little bit of poison, it's still a poison stew once you put poison in it. So Emily, what might be a situation?
I would say that if someone approached me and talked bad about a colleague or was just putting them down and complaining about frustrations, and a response to that I could probably give would be, I know that you are frustrated, and I guess I could say, like, I don't want your words to be misunderstood or come back to haunt you. Please don't talk about other colleagues without them present.
That's great. So Sunera, could you come up with an example?
Yeah, if somebody's talking about like their political views or some controversial topics, I could say something like, hey, I understand that you feel strongly about this, and I also know that it could be offensive to some people, or some people might not agree. So please try to avoid those topics while we're in this setting, with colleagues.
These are great. What about when people have real differences of opinion about the direction the company should go or about how a project should be? Because that's another area where conflict arises and people don't feel safe to express their opinions because people talk over them or just tell them it's been done before.
We can also use advocating or education, basically, to support that kind of a situation where it's stopping the team from doing an effective job of working together, either because somebody's bringing up a new idea, or they get interrupted over and over again, or comments that are disrupting the flow. So we can do it for ourselves, or we can do it for somebody else. For example, by saying something like, excuse me, I'd like to hear more about what so-and-so's idea is. And so not letting, like Irene said, not letting the pattern or the momentum build for that kind of behavior and interrupting it sooner creates that opportunity for others to speak up more. It could be, let's say, Irene, go ahead and start saying, oh, we've done that before.
That never works. We've tried it before again and again. It's just a dumb idea.
Yes, it's true. We've done it before. We've tried it. And this person might have a really great fresh angle. I'd love to hear what their perspective is. We might learn from it. So using that as a way of educating and advocating at the same time can help support more psychological safety in the workplace as well. You could say, wait, we welcome everybody's feedback. If you hear somebody saying, no, this is not the right time for this. No, wait, we want to hear from everybody's feedback. Please keep going, so that you're fostering that supportive environment for hearing about people's perspective and being able to speak up or challenge the status quo or add new ideas. Sometimes it's also mentioning, it's kind of like a blend of the other skills where you're putting it together, where you're acknowledging the other person's point of view. I know your intention is to be funny, and those kinds of jokes hurt people's feelings. And then you add information that helps them to understand why you're pushing for this. Some people will find this disrespectful or discriminatory. Please do speak your mind, and please do say kind words towards others as well while you're doing it, so that you're supporting saying your truth, but in a way that doesn't hurt other people.
What would be a situation where you might start to do a lot of advocacy or education and in the moment, and what might that look like?
I'm sorry to keep bringing up this example, but maybe if someone was complaining about a process that a colleague uses or just something about their work style, then you could advocate and say, that maybe that's what helps them better. Or for instance, if someone needed an accommodation and they saw it as unfair treatment, then you could say, well, you know what, like sometimes employees with such and such needs or disabilities, they can take advantage of those accommodations.
That's great. That's a great example. What about you, Sonora?
I'm thinking of situations where I guess because I'm in the clinical department, so when there can be different opinions of how to go about helping someone, different clinical judgments, and if there was a situation where somebody strongly disagreed with the way somebody else approached a specific case, I think that, and if they were saying it in a not a respectful way, like this is not clinically sound, or using strong language like that, I would probably tell them, like, as a reminder, this isn't a black and white field, and there's different ways to support people, so let's try to hear them out and understand why they chose that route.
What if somebody in a position of authority, we've said we want to have voices heard. We've said it's okay to challenge the status quo. Everybody's human. And so somebody in a position of authority suddenly shuts somebody else down in a meeting. Would any of these tactics or strategies be something that you might use to speak up in that moment?
Definitely both the advocating and educating. Like if a leader was shutting down a voice because that wasn't maybe their level, I can't think of the term, but you know what I mean? Like they didn't have enough say, or they didn't think that they were deserving of enough say. Someone could advocate and say, well, maybe, for instance, because they're Gen Z or because they share some sort of identity to the audience that we're targeting, is they might offer a needed perspective from who we're targeting.
That's great. Sonora, what about for you when somebody's there in authority, and how might you, and you might be the one in authority in your department, but there might be somebody who's struggling in another department with that happening. How might you coach them to speak up?
I think it always depends on like the nature of what the person is saying. If there are discriminatory remarks, like for example, about the person's age, just going off of Emily's example, I think there are those situations you can interrupt, like regardless of what status somebody has. Like if they're making derogatory remarks, it's okay to interrupt and say and redirect, and then maybe outside of the moment when if there's not people around, to provide some of that education or advocacy. But I think it depends on who's around and what the context is, if the person that they're talking about is there as well. Like I think there's a few different skills that could be used depending on that.
And yes, definitely being strategic, thinking in the moment. If you don't feel like you can intervene in the moment, often reaching out to the person later and saying, let's make a plan, or how can I support you? All different ways of helping create that feeling that everybody matters. This comes from our founding principle at Kid Power, where in 1989, when we were signing our incorporation papers, our founding board president, Ellen Bass, is the co-author of a groundbreaking book at that time called The Courage to Heal for women survivors of child sexual abuse. And she said, what we're doing here is revolutionary. We're saying that the safety and well-being of a child are more important than anybody's inconvenience, embarrassment, or offense. And I wrote that down, and now we keep transforming it. But for in the workplace context, it's to ask ourselves, to keep reminding ourselves of our values, of putting safety first. And we take a broad definition of safety and well-being. So what's more important, protecting safety and well-being or avoiding embarrassment, inconvenience, or offense? Anybody watching this webinar would say, well, of course, safety and well-being are most important. I believe that that's what everybody would say. The problem is that embarrassment, inconvenience, and offense are powerful feelings that get in the way of speaking up for our own well-being and advocating for the well-being of others. We ask people, and I'm just going to ask you, do you hate to be embarrassed? If you do, you can raise your hand here. Do you dislike embarrassing most other people? Yeah. What about, do you not like to be bothered when you're busy? Yeah, I don't. How about bothering most other people?
Yeah.
Don't like that either.
Yeah,
And who likes the feeling of people being mad at you or being mad at others?
Did you say who likes or doesn't like?
Who here doesn't like that? Right. Thank you, Marlene. Right. So we have to acknowledge that if we acknowledge it and we just say, I'm going to put safety first. I just got a letter from somebody who we trained in 2005. She works for the Department of Rehabilitation. And she was in a very tough neighborhood in San Francisco. And she said over and over again, I kept on all these years, kept on using the skill of put safety first. And it has helped me stop some potentially tragic situations because I knew that that was what my value was, even if it was hard. So I think helping people focus on their values can make such a difference. And I know you have that value, but sometimes getting it in clear, simple terms really does help. So Sonora, what is a situation where you or somebody that you work with would benefit from this what's more important question?
I think, again, I'm going to go back to that example with people kind of defending their judgment for having dealt with a high stress situation that we work in every day. They were talking to the person, they know what's best for the person. So I think, and that person's safety, who they're talking to, is priority. So I think that's a situation where people can prioritize that and advocate for why they did something or their judgment or their process, and that they deserve the support of their leaders in that way as well.
great. Thank you. What about you, Emily?
You know, I would say if someone decided not to speak up if they were witnessing bullying or harassment or undermining or anything of the following, you could say, you know, if the reason why they didn't want to speak up is fear of embarrassment, then you could say, you know, what's more important.
That's a great example.
And sometimes speaking up is not in the moment, it's later because it's more appropriate or safer or more strategic. So yeah, that is definitely something that we can encourage to do. It's never too late to speak up. All right, so one of the ways we can support and continue to nurture psychological safety in the workplace is to use our heart power. So everybody go ahead and put your hands on your own heart or your own chest. And you can use your heart power to take things in that are kindnesses from other people or to be kind to yourself. You can use your heart power to protect your feelings from hurtful words or behavior from other people. You can use your heart power to show others that you care about who they are by, you know, making that connection kind of with them by really appreciating or seeing who they are and as well as what they do. And you can use your heart power to advocate for safety and respect and kindness towards everyone, everywhere. So let's practice putting that together. Imagine that we're colleagues, and for the moment we are, for this webinar, we are colleagues. And I am truthful about this compliment. All the examples we gave were pretend so far, but this one is really an authentic compliment. I think it is fantastic and outstanding what Workplace Options and each of you do in your jobs to help support caring, kind, respectful, and welcoming communities in the workplace. So Sonora and Emily, take that in, and Irene, you too, because you do that in Kid Power. and you can say thank you. Go ahead and say that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Which is a really simple way of showing we took it in, or you know that I, you know, sometimes I just do this. I don't say anything. I just do this. I put my hand on my heart to show it because it helps me remember to take that in. Sometimes we're always going, oh no, I didn't do this right, or no, maybe not. I made it not that much, but really taking that time to take that compliment in.
The feeling of just having your hand on your heart, so just protecting, it helps you feel safe. It's another one of those emotional safety skills. And saying kind things to yourself. Have you ever said to yourself, I'm not getting enough done? Who has said that?
Yeah.
Put your hands on your heart and say, I do a lot. Go ahead.
I do a lot.
I do a lot.
Have you ever made the same mistake over and over again and said to yourself, what's wrong with me? I did it again. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead and put your hands on your heart and say, I do not have to be perfect to be great.
I do
I
not
don't
have to be perfect
to be great.
to be great.
So these are some simple ways, and I want to say it's an honor to be with you. I learned, Emily, Sonora, Dalal, Workplace Options, all of you. We've learned so much in our collaboration. We are thrilled to continue, and we just feel very, very, very grateful. And so, Emily, thank you for your bright smile and your perseverance with technology.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Sonora, you've got a lot of wisdom in the practice that you use, and you've got a wonderful grounded presence that helps me feel peaceful and safe every time I talk with you.
Thank you so much.
We just want people to know that we have many, many, many resources. We will include this along with the recording, links to many things, including all about relationships and the skills we use. But we just wanted you to see how many different types of resources we provide. We're sharing them on our center pages for different centers in English and Spanish so far, but we're getting French soon. And also you can always just email us at safety@kidpower.org. So I just thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this. Is there anything you'd like people who might be watching this webinar to know?
The only thing I can think of right now is that there are tools at your disposal for like workplace. I think people feel trapped a lot of the time, so there are things to use.
Right. Anything you want to say in closing, Marilyn?
I really appreciate how much thought and care and energy that you're putting into creating workplace safety. I do a lot of work with workplaces, and the level of concern and time we spend at work, but the concern and distress that creates when people don't have skills is incredibly disempowering for them. So to have resources like Workplace Options doing that is absolutely a gift, and to have our collaboration together as well, so that we can do more together and go further.
All right. Well, thank you so, so much. And we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.